I returned home for the new year with these cracked lips, and my childhood friend Natalie, who never liked teasing me, mocked, "Ethan, did a dog bite you?" In front of my family, I replied, "It was my girlfriend who bit me." As soon as I said this, her face suddenly darkened. On the last day, my mother ordered me to come home for New Year. I hurried back in the evening. As soon as I stepped through the door, I saw Natalie and her parents. After a brief glance, her expression changed and she teased, "Ethan, were you bitten by a dog again?" When I was 5, I insisted on kissing a dog and got bitten, needing 5 rabies shots. At that time, Natalie accompanied me, though she wasn't happy about it. This incident always became a joke she used to mock me with. Perhaps recalling the old story, the adults in the room burst into laughter. It was then that I touched my lips. The scab stood out more on my pale, cracked lips. Amidst the laughter, I said, "No, it was my girlfriend who bit me this morning." As soon as my words fell, the laughter stopped and everyone stood stunned. Natalie's face turned dark, because we had promised to kiss since childhood. In the heavy silence, Mother Natalie spoke. "Does Ethan have a girlfriend now?" I politely nodded. "Sheck, a senior from our school." Under Natalie's nearly angry gaze, I continued, "This time she didn't have time to come. After the new year, I'll bring her to eat with everyone." Hearing this, Natalie finally exploded. She angrily snapped at me, "Eat what?" Then she turned and walked out to the balcony. Mother Natalie anxiously looked at me, then followed her out. I just shrugged as if nothing was wrong, among the somewhat awkward gazes of the others. I wheeled my suitcase into the room, occasionally still hearing arguments from the balcony. "You used to say you'd never marry Ethan, but now that he has a girlfriend, you're going crazy," Mother Natalie said. After a long silence, Natalie replied, "Anyway, I don't agree." I lowered my head and gave a faint smile. 3 years ago, during a family gathering, Mother Natalie jokingly called me her precious son-in-law. Who knew that Natalie would immediately explode, accusing her mother of being too frivolous? Then she turned to criticize me. "Don't you know shame? Always clinging to her. Tell me to stop bothering her from now on." Father Natalie scolded her on the spot, and she blamed all of this on me. My relationship with Natalie ended on bad terms. Even when choosing universities, I chose a place far from hers. I thought that after this, Natalie and I would just remain childhood friends. But now, what is she doing? When I finished changing, Natalie was already sitting at the dining table. It's unclear how her mother comforted her, but she no longer looked as angry as before. At the table, everyone deliberately avoided mentioning the earlier incident, only asking about my studies. As the atmosphere began to ease, my phone suddenly rang. I glanced at the screen, pursed my lips, and smiled lightly. "Should I take the call?" "Everyone, please eat first," I said, standing up and stepping outside. It was a call from my girlfriend, Sophia. She just asked me a few questions like, "Have you eaten yet?" I whispered, "Why did you bite my lip until it bled?" I didn't even recognize it. Sophia hesitated on the other end, then finally replied softly, "I did it on purpose." I was about to speak when I suddenly heard a loud noise from behind the door. I turned my head and saw Natalie, her face red with irritation. "Are you going to eat or not? If not, I'll go wash the dishes." From the phone came Sophia's voice. "Haven't you finished eating yet? Let me order fried chicken for you." Hearing her voice, Natalie's face immediately paled. "Who is she?" I looked up at her and smiled. "My girlfriend." On the phone, Sophia fell silent for a moment, then said, "I'll call you back tonight. I'll wait for you." Then, she hung up. Between me and Natalie, only silence remained. She stared intently at my lips, then suddenly said, "How long have you two been together? Have you already kissed? We've known each other for almost a year. Why haven't I ever heard you mention her?" I thought for a moment. Perhaps Natalie was referring to my social media. Although we don't talk much anymore, I haven't unfriended her. We hardly message each other, and I rarely update my profile, never posting anything about Sophia. Natalie sneered. "Seems like you don't love her that much, huh?" I looked at her in confusion. "Why do you say that? If you love her, why never mention her?" I clenched my hand into a fist. "It's not like that. I truly love her. I looked up at Natalie, wanting to make it clear I wasn't lying. She lowered her eyes. Seeing I wasn't lying, a flicker of worry passed through her eyes. I didn't want to get entangled with her anymore, so I walked away, preparing to leave. As I passed her, she softly asked, "How can you let go so quickly?" Back then, when Natalie embarrassed me in front of my parents, I was really hurt. When we were young, we were close friends with no secrets. She also gave me ambiguous signals in high school. When our class started a trend of reading novels, a common trope was childhood sweethearts. Those who knew Natalie and me joked that we were the epitome of this. And she never seemed annoyed. She still walked home with me, bought snacks for me. I thought she liked me too. But she hurt me. Right in front of my parents. What pained me even more was the next day when my desk mate asked, "Did you know? Natalie is dating Ryan." Ryan was the Gunda hot guy in our class, who had a crush on Natalie for 3 years. But she never reciprocated. At the post-graduation teacher appreciation party, he confessed to her in front of everyone. He expressed his feelings again, and everyone joined in teasing, even the teachers laughing meaningfully. But she didn't respond. Yet someone told me the next day that after she embarrassed me, she was with Ryan. I thought for a moment, then replied, "I know now, but I'm busy. Let's talk later." I tried to read to forget, but couldn't help opening my social media. There was a public post from Ryan, showing him and Natalie close together, in an intimate pose. Several close friends asked me about it. At that moment I felt lucky. I didn't like posting online. Otherwise, as the rumored boyfriend of Natalie for years, I'd probably have to clarify. But soon after I put down my phone, a tear falling onto the book in front of me. There's no more time for sadness. Previously, I promised Natalie we'd stay in the coastal city together. But now, I can't keep my word. When choosing universities, I picked one in the Southwest. That summer, encouraged by my parents, I learned to drive, swim, and traveled through several cities. With my tight schedule, I realized I didn't have much time to be sad. My mother said Uncle David had brought Natalie to our house a few times, but never met me. I was either traveling or studying. It wasn't until near the start of school, when my mother and I were moving in, that I saw Natalie again. Uncle David looked at me and said, "You've gotten tan." I smiled brightly, nodded, and said, "I'd been to many places." Natalie stood by, not saying a word, occasionally glancing at me. Perhaps her mood wasn't good. She didn't speak the entire time, only looking at me intently as she left. Before going to bed, I opened my social media again and saw a new post from Ryan. "The angel couldn't defeat childhood sweethearts. What you can't have becomes the ever-bright moon." Someone asked him what happened, and he replied, "We broke up." It was then that I finally understood why Natalie looked so uneasy that day. It turned out, they broke up. But his mention of childhood sweethearts confused me. I don't recall any other childhood sweethearts of Natalie, besides me. If it were before, I'd definitely go find her to ask. But during this break, I've thought it through. In the future, the most Natalie and I can be is friends. I won't be bothered anymore. On the day I left for school, before boarding the plane, I turned off my phone and missed a message from Natalie. "Why did you choose University C? University life is very busy. I've taken an extra major and even weekends are packed." It was only when Natalie unexpectedly messaged me that I realized I hadn't thought of her in a long time. She asked me to help order something on an app. I replied, "Sorry, I don't have that app. Truly sorry." Her side showed typing for a long time. Then finally replied, "It's okay." I didn't intend to continue the conversation, put down my phone, and kept doing homework until the library closed. Only then did I see she'd added, "When are you free to chat?" The message was sent 5 hours ago. I didn't reply until she stood in front of me asking, "Why did you back away so quickly?" A crazy thought suddenly occurred to me, but I immediately suppressed it. I said, "I don't understand what you're talking about." Natalie didn't say anything more. I turned and walked back to my room. The day I returned to school, Sophia came to pick me up. As soon as she saw me, she took my luggage. "You must be tired. Let me take you to eat something delicious." On the way, Sophia looked unusual. Asked, "Is something wrong?" After hesitating, she finally said, "I'm really sorry for biting your lip until it bled that day. I just felt too insecure." Once Sophia and I casually talked about past relationships. I didn't hide that I used to like Natalie. At the time, Sophia said she didn't mind, but the worry in her eyes didn't escape me. Just like now, she felt both aggrieved and panicked. I'd like Natalie again. So I held her hand. "It's okay. You treating me to buns and snails is like an apology." The first time I met Sophia was strange. That day, the library closed early because it was a holiday, and on my way back to the dorm with a stack of books, a small cat suddenly jumped out from the bushes. I watched it for a few seconds as it ran over and rubbed against my leg. I sat down and petted its head, and it kept circling me. The cat had a collar, so it didn't seem feral. I had no choice but to sit and wait for its owner. After a while, the cat started rubbing against my chest. I picked it up and gently stroked its belly. Soon it fell asleep. A few minutes later, a girl ran over. She looked at me and the cat in my arms, clasped her hands and apologized, saying it was her cat. To thank me, she befriended me. That girl was Sophia. Sophia is 2 grades above me and is now in her first year of graduate school. When we first met, she often used thanks as an excuse to bring me meals in the library or help me review for exams. She quietly entered my life, and even my friends kept praising her. But I'm not the type to be swayed by others' praise, nor was it because Sophia is beautiful with a unique charm. Anyway, I've stumbled over Natalie in this matter, but Sophia made me feel something because of a small thing. That day, she invited me to an amusement park. Honestly, it was my first time going with a girl. I used to invite Natalie, but she only promised verbally and never went with me. It wasn't until Sophia took me to the park that I felt a bit dazed. If it were before, I'd never think my first time at an amusement park would be with another girl. Sophia noticed I was stunned and waved her hand in front of me. I snapped back, smiled at her, but accidentally bumped into a little girl in a princess dress. The ice cream in her hand fell to the ground. Seeing her about to cry, I panicked. Sophia reacted faster. She immediately sat down and coaxed, "Oh, where did this little princess come from? Princesses shouldn't cry easily." The girl's tears were about to fall, and Sophia gently wiped them with a tissue. "The big brother didn't mean to bump into you. I'll buy you another ice cream, okay?" she said. She looked up at me and winked. I immediately understood and also sat down to apologize. "I'm sorry, little darling. The big brother didn't mean to." While Sophia ran to buy another identical ice cream, the girl received it from her hand and immediately smiled brightly, like a flower. Sophia coaxed her a few more times before the girl finally left. I stood there stunned as Sophia scolded me for being slow, saying, "Natalie used to always say that," with an annoyed expression. It seemed Natalie was never patient with me, but Sophia just smiled, patted my head and said, "Young master, let's go. If we don't hurry, we'll miss the fireworks." She gently took my wrist and led me forward. On the way, I subconsciously asked, "Why didn't you scold me?" Sophia froze for a moment, perhaps wondering why I asked that, then smiled brightly at me. Cinderella dropped her glass slipper out of worry too. Clumsiness can sometimes be endearing. Anyway, at school you're always serious like a scholar. I rarely see this natural side of you. I felt a pang in my nose. Once, when Sophia went with me to the library, we were clearly sitting opposite each other, but she passed me a small note that read, "Can you be my boyfriend?" Below was a picture of a kitten with tears in its eyes. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. I thought then that I'd completely escaped the shadow Natalie left. The person sitting opposite me brought a sense of security, allowing me to wholeheartedly enter a healthy relationship. Sophia always prepared surprises on holidays and small gifts with sincerity. She always asked about my plans first to ensure she wasn't bothering me, then planned small surprise activities. Sometimes pulling out a flower during our date, other times a pre-planned trip. On National Day holiday, she took me to a nearby city. Sophia took a perfect photo at the beach I'd always wanted to visit. She kept that photo behind her phone case. She was always meticulous, not missing any detail. Our 3-day, 2-night trip was very pleasant. If not for the uninvited guest on the way back, that joy might have lasted longer. As we held hands returning to school, my roommate called me. "Ethan, your sister is at the school, and the door manager won't let her in. She's waiting for you downstairs. I was confused. What sister? I didn't know. Tall, thin, some male students just asked for her contact info. Just as I arrived downstairs, I saw Natalie in the crowd. She also looked at me. As she was about to greet me, she saw Sophia and me holding hands. Her eyes immediately darkened. Natalie said she wanted to invite me and Sophia for coffee. Is she your girlfriend? She asked. I replied, yes, this is my girlfriend, Sophia. I introduced Natalie to Sophia. Upon hearing this, Natalie's face darkened. As Sophia took a sip of coffee and approached me, she smiled and said, sister, your eyes are sharp. Natalie gritted her teeth. Sister? What sister? When the atmosphere grew tense, Sophia said, I bought some pastries from the shop next door for her. I'll go get them now. With that, she left her seat. I looked up at Natalie and asked, why did you come? Her face was full of dissatisfaction. As your neighbor's sister, I came to see if your girlfriend is trustworthy. When I and Natalie were silent, Sophia returned with the pastry, opening the package and saying to Natalie, Ethan really likes the cheesecake and coffee from the shop. Sophia triumphantly placed the pastry before me, as if showing off. Natalie looked at me with annoyance. Sophia leaned close to me, even resting her head on my shoulder, then softly asked, why do I feel she doesn't like me? Though she spoke softly, she deliberately let Natalie hear, and her expression worsened. I gently patted Sophia's hand. No, that's not true. Don't overthink it. Under Natalie's nearly angry gaze, I held Sophia's hand. I need to go to the library now. Thanks for the treat, Natalie, I said, placing a 50 note on the table without looking back at her expression. I led Sophia away. On the way back, I suddenly thought about Sophia's strange behavior. Usually, she's always gentle and never makes others uncomfortable. But today, she kept making Natalie frown. I felt she guessed who Natalie was. Sure enough, Sophia asked, is this the girl you used to like? I replied, yes, but she's just the past. Sophia nuzzled me. Of course I trust you. I thought Natalie had left, but the next day Sophia's brother called me. Ethan, come to the hospital quickly. Sophia was attacked. I rushed to the hospital and saw Sophia on the bench to the left, and on the right was Natalie. Upon seeing me, Sophia's eyes darkened, looking wronged, about to say something. But Natalie spoke first. Ethan. She was just hugging another guy and laughing happily before I could reply. Natalie thrust her phone screen in front of me. Indeed, it was a photo of Sophia hugging a man, looking very intimate. Natalie muttered, I told you, didn't I? Your choice of girlfriend is really untrustworthy. She looked very dissatisfied, occasionally glancing at me. I interrupted her. That's her cousin. Upon hearing this, Natalie paused, then said after a while, you don't need to cover for her. Your poor judgment isn't a one-day thing. I'm not covering for her, I said firmly, my voice tinged with frustration. Since we've been together, Sophia has introduced me to her family, I said, turning to look at Natalie. If you say I have poor judgment, then yes, otherwise I wouldn't have liked you. Hearing this, Natalie froze, stammering. How can you say that? Turning back to Sophia, I saw her red, wronged eyes like a kitten whose food was stolen. My heart ached for her. I lifted her face to check the injury without looking up, saying, but my words were directed at Natalie. You should return to school early. You've already hit my girlfriend and made her lose her sense of security. A few days later, Natalie left in a daze. That day, I saw Sophia off downstairs at the dorm. She continued planning for the next day to take me on a Ferris wheel ride because the weather would be sunny. She said stargazing on the Ferris wheel would be more beautiful. But the next afternoon, I received a call from my mother saying Natalie had called her, claiming Sophia was secretly hugging another male student. She asked me what was going on. At that moment, I suddenly felt disgusted with Natalie, hating her for distorting everything, hating her for her unreasonable stubbornness. This feeling of disgust left me dazed all day, to the point that when the Ferris wheel reached its highest point, Sophia was about to kiss me, but I forgot to react. When I came to my senses, I only saw the glistening tear at the corner of Sophia's eye in the shimmering light. My heart twisted in guilt. I wanted to explain, but Sophia spoke first. Ethan, is something bothering you? Her voice trembled slightly. Let's calm down for a few days. I'll wait for you. Sophia was always a cheerful girl, but when facing me she often shed tears. Suddenly my heart was filled with guilt. Even though she was a bit angry, Sophia still held my hand. Back at the dorm before leaving, she lowered her eyes, looking dejected. "Ethan, what I give to you is what I hope to receive in return," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I always thought of Sophia as the strong one, but seeing her so vulnerable, I realized just how much she truly cared for me. Last weekend, Sophia was always by my side, but today she came alone to the lab. It was different from usual. I went to the bookstore alone. When checking out, I always felt someone watching me. I turned around and saw an unfamiliar guy holding a book. He approached me and said, "I know you." I was surprised by his words since I'd never met him. He continued, "I know you from Sophia's social media. I used to pursue her." Seeing my still confused face, he laughed. "Just used to pursue. Didn't work out, don't worry." Then he sat and told me his story with Sophia. They were high school classmates. At that time, Sophia was smart, beautiful, and the center of attention at school, even known to seniors. He was the so-called hot guy of the school back then. Everyone thought they should be together, so he also developed feelings for Sophia. One day after school, he blocked her path and confessed, thinking he'd surely succeed. But Sophia seriously rejected him. She said, "We shouldn't love based on others' opinions. True feelings require understanding one's own heart." At that time, he didn't understand Sophia's words until he met the person he truly loved and realized his feelings for her weren't love, but being influenced by others' words. Wanting to be with someone famous to save face. Although Sophia rejected me, she never spoke ill of me, always preserving my dignity. "Until I saw you appear in her social media, I knew you must also be a good person." After finishing his story, he left. I opened Sophia's social media. Her wallpaper was a photo of us together, and all posts were visible. I slowly scrolled down. Before we were together, her posts were about her daily life. Since last year, every post had my shadow. Sometimes a stolen side view of me, sometimes me dozing off in the library. Her friends knew me because she often told them, "Ethan reads so much, he forgets to eat, so I have to bring meals to my boyfriend." It's no wonder my roommates all praised her. Everyone knew Ethan was the one in Sophia's heart. But when I opened my own social media, among the few posts, they were mostly mandatory club updates with no trace of Sophia. No wonder Natalie said I didn't love Sophia. Looking back at Sophia's youthful appearance yesterday, I understood. Perhaps because of my past relationship, I divided my feelings like cutting a cake, only giving a little each time. But now I realize that Sophia gave me 100% sense of security, and I only gave her 20% back. This was truly unfair. Plus, Natalie's reappearance made Sophia extremely insecure. So I needed to talk to her. But unexpectedly, the one who sought me first wasn't Sophia but Natalie. When she appeared downstairs at my dorm, I couldn't help frowning. Natalie spoke first. "I want to talk to you." At this moment, I needed to end things with Natalie. Otherwise, her entanglement would only make Sophia more worried. So I agreed, then texted Sophia to let her know where I was going and with whom. "Even if we go out to eat, I'll come back soon." I thought this was the first step to bring security to Sophia. Then I went with Natalie to a Sichuan restaurant behind the school. Since we're nothing now, I just ordered spicy dishes for myself and let her order hers. Although I knew Natalie didn't like spicy food, she immediately frowned at my coldness. "You used to not treat me like this," she said, trying to mend things but also bringing up the photo of Sophia. "I'm a fool." "Don't let yourself be fooled." I just coldly replied. "Your worry is excessive." She mentioned starting to date Ryan. I regretted being with him. "All I thought about was you," she said. "I like you, but at that time I hated my mother and others joking around, so I was annoyed." In her words, I finally understood the phrase, "The angel can't defeat childhood sweethearts," that Ryan once posted. It was referring to me. Now, I wasn't only astonished but also disgusted with Natalie. If she didn't like Ryan, why be with him? In high school, Ryan often said to me, "Ethan, you're smart and handsome. I really admire you." But when pursuing Natalie, as long as she wasn't dating, we still competed fairly. I often remember his bright smile, but the love he chased for 3 years only lasted 2 months. How pathetic. Natalie added, "Ethan, come back. What she gives you, I can also give." Just as I was about to speak, a voice from behind suddenly rang out. Can't get a move in the card game, making Natalie's face darken. Natalie, if you really liked me, you wouldn't have embarrassed me in front of my parents. You always only think of yourself, only giving me a bit of your leftover emotions, and you call that liking me? Her eyes reddened. Before she could say anything, the voice from behind continued. Can't call. She fell silent for a moment, as if trying to hold on to the last hope, then finally spoke. Anyway, I'll wait for you. From behind came a hurried voice. Wait until the flowers wither. At that moment I stood up and walked towards the back table. Sitting there was none other than Sophia, hugging her phone and playing the card game. Then Sophia and I returned to the dorm together. On the way I asked her, have you caused enough trouble? Sophia puffed her cheeks in anger. Who let her dig into my house? I looked at her for a moment, smiled and replied, who let you be the one she can dig? Sophia immediately answered, her voice playful. Textbook says that in such pursuit scenarios of burning stages, it's often easy to succeed. I was puzzled. Which textbook? I asked. I saw her face turn red with embarrassment for a moment before she handed me her phone. She opened a TXT file titled Angel Defeats Childhood Sweethearts. A guide for male gods. You call this a textbook? I chuckled. Would you dare send this to your teachers? She snatched back her phone quickly. Don't I still need to maintain dignity in front of my seniors? She replied with a teasing grin. Sophia in the lab always appeared as a well-behaved student, keeping her distance from everyone, but when she was with me, she was like a wagging puppy. Only I knew how clingy Sophia could be. After a while of silence, Sophia softly said, her voice tinged with uncertainty, I'm just scared. The book says to use some small tricks to make you realize how important I am. But I'm afraid if I go too far, you'll run away. Sophia lowered her head, looking like a child who had made a mistake. I'm sorry, she whispered. I shouldn't have eavesdropped on your conversation. As I reached up to stroke her face, I felt the warmth of her palm. It was Sophia's tears. A wave of guilt washed over me like a rising tide. I pulled her into an embrace and immediately said, my voice soft but firm, you don't need to use those tricks. I'll still love you. Sophia, I didn't show you my true feelings before, and I'm truly sorry. Later, I took the lead in changing my social media wallpaper to a photo of us together and introduced Sophia to everyone around me. Everyone knew that Sophia was the girlfriend I cherished most. I learned from how Sophia loved me, expressing all my feelings without hiding. Once I needed to use Sophia's phone to register an account, and she readily handed it over. After a while, many messages popped up from that familiar number. It was Natalie. I opened the messages and there they were, over 10 photos of me and Natalie from before. Sophia only replied with a photo of her leaning on my chest. Perhaps this made Natalie go crazy. She only scolded Sophia rudely, but Sophia gently replied, it's not my fault. Sometimes you can't keep Ethan. Who told you to always belittle him? You think that's affectionate love, but you know what? Ethan once doubted himself because of your careless words. You always relied on childhood sweetheart feelings, thinking Ethan couldn't leave. But Natalie, no one is indispensable. At least to me, Ethan deserves all the best. Natalie was silent for a long time before replying, what does it have to do with you? I've been with him since we were young. Our feelings are definitely deeper than Sophia's. Sophia replied, calm but resolute. If you measure feelings by time, then marry the earth because you're always together. Goodbye, sister-in-law. Remember to give a big wedding gift. Natalie could only respond with an angry emoji. When I checked her profile, I found she had blocked Sophia. I rarely posted on social media, but on graduation day I posted, June isn't just about graduation gowns but also my bride, accompanied by my graduation photo and marriage certificate. Our high school classmates successively liked it. However, Natalie was the first to like it, but the next second she commented on the proposal, mentioning a bit of an interesting misunderstanding. It seems Sophia and I had the same idea. Both of us took out rings at the park where we first dated. When we saw each other's rings, we were stunned for a few seconds before laughing and exchanging rings. Later, my parents and Sophia's parents had dinner together. Sophia's mother from City C was lively, but couldn't hide her joy when she met me, saying her daughter needed a gentle, polite man like me to take care of her. After the meal, we drove back to the hotel. Her mother hugged me and said, "This little Sophia is truly a good girl." I laughed. "You just met her once. How do you know?" "Looking at her parents is enough," she said with a smile. Her father always looks at her mother with loving eyes. Although her mother is a bit hot-tempered, she still acts coy with her father. That's harmony. A girl growing up in such a family will know how to love others. I can see she's also taught her child how to express emotions. Thinking back on how I treated Sophia poorly before, my heart was filled with regret. Just then there was a knock on the door. "Ethan, I bought some sparklers. Let's go out and play." A radiant smile appeared before my eyes as I opened the door. I held her hand tightly. Lucky it's not too late. The last encounter with Natalie was at my wedding with Sophia. At that moment I was adjusting my attire when Natalie suddenly appeared behind me, took out a red envelope from her bag and handed it to me. "This is the wedding gift," she said. "Or you could consider leaving with me right now." I looked up into her hopeful eyes, took the envelope and said, "You're the first to give a gift to my grandson. He'll surely remember you." Her eyes immediately reddened. "Is Sophia pregnant?" she asked. I smiled and nodded. "Yes. You're about to be a dad," she said sadly. "You've thought about the possibility that Sophia's heart might waver in the future? Or that you might not love her anymore?" "You're wrong," I said calmly. "Love isn't a continuous process but a choice. Every time it's Sophia, I'll love her as if for the first time, in the moment she agrees to be with me, to post our photos on social media. Even just a glance from her, I fall in love with her again. Perhaps healthy love always brings courage." Finally, I said these words, looking out the door where the wedding dress hem was visible. "I laugh every day with her. It's a surprise from Santa Claus, so I'm willing to face the uncertainties of the future to enjoy our present. Maybe I'm a bit unlucky because Natalie and I couldn't harmonize perfectly and missed each other. But I'm lucky because Sophia patiently taught me how to express my feelings." At that moment, Sophia, who was secretly listening outside, finally appeared. Her face flushed. Her hand extended towards me. I took the bouquet from Sophia and placed it in Natalie's hand. "My Santa Claus has arrived," I said, smiling. "Natalie, wishing you happiness in the future." As I walked past her, she lightly said, "Next time, remember to speak politely." Behind me, she left a sentence. "There won't be anyone else." I heard it but didn't look back. After the wedding, my mother told me that Natalie had left the country on the day of our wedding, driving Uncle David and everyone crazy. My phone often received messages from abroad, but they were just daily greetings, never crossing boundaries. Perhaps Natalie is still stuck in the past, but I have no reason to take responsibility for her stubbornness. Each time I show Sophia the messages, she guesses who sent them, always acting indifferent, then nestling in my arms. Once, due to work, I borrowed Sophia's computer and accidentally discovered a folder on the screen. Curiosity made me click in. Inside were photos and videos of us, but the first video I hadn't seen before. I opened it. In the video, Sophia was holding her cat, looking very distressed. "Ryan, did you complete the mission?" The cat wagged its tail. After a while, a guy appeared in the video. It was me as a sophomore carrying a bag and walking past the bushes. Sophia lightly patted the cat's behind, but it backed away, unwilling. "Cute. It's your turn. Remember to stick to him for a while. If successful, you'll have a dad." The cat kept wagging its tail, unwilling to budge. Sophia frowned for a moment, then pushed it forward. "Hurry up. If you succeed, you'll have a dad."